Namaste. Today I'm starting a new series which I have called as Bansuri Innovations. And for purpose of this series, I'm expanding the meaning of Bansuri to include not only the Hindustani Bansuri that is used for Hindustani classical music, but also the flutes used for Carnatic music. Now, we've already come across some innovations in this channel when I first introduced the carbon fiber flute for Indian classical music some 2 years ago. Since then, I've made several other carbon fiber flutes, and I've experimented with all kinds of things because I've had over the years many ideas on how to possibly improve the Bansuri. I have therefore decided to start a whole new series on these, and hopefully from time to time I shall have a new episode to show you, to bring some new ideas. This introductory episode gives you some of the basic reasons why and what has prompted me to start this series. I'm hoping that I'll receive a lot of feedback from you viewers, and also hopefully some of your own ideas on how to improve the Bansuris that we can discuss at length in this channel. Thank you. Now here is a typical bass E concert Bansuri. It's basically one long piece of bamboo with holes. It's pretty simple to make as long as the holes are of the right size and placed in the correct positions. There are no keys to operate, and direct finger contact with the tone hole gives you the different frequencies, and it's relatively cheap. Here is a Western concert C flute. The more expensive professional ones are usually made of sterling silver or even gold or platinum. Therefore, they can be very, very expensive. There are 16 or more tone holes, and all the holes are controlled by key mechanisms. Therefore, this kind of flute is not at all easy to make at home with some simple tools. And they're mostly machine-made. These flutes come in three parts: the head joint, the main body, and the foot joint. If you add up the keys, the springs, the cushion, the pads, the rods, the mounts, the pins, the cork, etc., it amounts to hundreds of parts that need to be assembled. Again, you're not going to be able to do this at home with some simple hand tools. The current Western concert flute evolved around the mid-1800s and is the result of decades of painstaking efforts by Theobald Boehm, who was a metallurgy engineer, and he tried all kinds of different metals and wood and other material. The early Western flutes were very much like Indian flutes, basically wooden tubes with a blowhole and some finger tone holes, along with one or two keys to control holes that were hard to reach. Here is a photo of a Baroque flute, which was the most popular type prior to the Boehm flute. The point I want to make is that ever since Boehm came up with his inventions, the Western concert flute has evolved continuously with numerous small incremental changes. Different metal alloys, woods, and man-made material have been tried. The key mechanisms have been perfected and continue to improve. The keypads continue to use newer material. There has been much research over the shape and size of the blowhole. With all these continuous innovations, the Western concert flute has evolved to a state where some truly amazing music is possible. Watch this extract of Swiss flautist Elena Schultes playing one of Johann Sebastian Bach's most famous compositions, Toccata and Fugue in D minor. I'm only showing an extract here with the permission of Elena. Now, this was a piece written for an organ and is usually played in church organs. Here, Elena plays it on a flute and makes it sound almost like an organ. Can these highly evolved flutes be used for Indian music? They have already been used extensively in the Indian film industry and in certain orchestras and certainly in fusion music. But the key mechanism is not really suitable for Indian classical music, as the keys operate on a purely off-on mechanism. So partial closures are not possible. The open hole flutes, such as the one shown here, offer some possibilities, but they're sort of limited. One should be able to play simple rags that don't have much ornamentations. But with these flutes, it would be very difficult to produce the long means of Hindustani classical music. Or the complex gamakas of Carnatic music, such as when playing the Carnatic Bhairavi. Perhaps keys can be used sometime in the future if they can be made to open and close continuously and gradually. So, why am I digressing here on Western flutes? The reason is that I would love to have seen the same mindset of research in incorporating continuous improvements to the Bansuri. The Bansuri, by its sheer simplicity, cries out for innovations. Anyone with some simple tools can make Bansuris. Try moving the finger holes around, create additional tone holes, and try different materials. It is impossible to create or make changes to Western concert flute with so many different parts. Plus, who would ever want to tinker with an instrument that has cost you several thousands of dollars? There have definitely been some improvements and innovations in Bansuri over the last few decades, but these have been few and quite minor to my knowledge. For one, Bansuri makers are much more careful in the tuning of their Bansuris. Nowadays, you can buy with reasonable confidence that you are getting a well-tuned Bansuri when buying from a reputed maker, which is not always the case previously. It is for this reason that I've decided to bring out the series on Bansuri innovations, where I will be introducing many ideas I've had over the last several years. Even if none of the ideas mentioned are adopted by anyone, I will feel that my time and effort have been justified if I manage to plant some seeds of innovation in the minds of some young Indian flutists somewhere and help them think out of the box. It is time to rekindle the spirit of innovation for which India has been famous throughout its history. It is only during the last 800 years or so invaders from outside have come and crushed this spirit by destroying universities, libraries, and temples which are as much a seat for cultural gatherings and innovations as for prayer. The British rule in particular has damaged Indians psychologically in a big way, making Indians feel rather inferior, and we are only now ready to press the reset button. We will be exploring such things as alternative material, alternative fingering systems, alternative ways of holding the flute, possibilities of using keys, and use other ideas borrowed from the West. But before we start, we must, in true Indian spirit, pray or pay our pranams to history and the past innovators of the Bansuri who have brought it to its current state, both in Hindustani music and in Carnatic music. This is what we will do in episode 2. Thank you.